Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Movie Fandom Show. I am, as always, your host, Matthew Kearns. With me today, we have a member of the Take 3 fan page, Ryan Permison. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, Ryan, what movie did you bring on for us to talk about today?
I decided to go with the 2013 DC Cinematic Universe film that started it all, known as Man of Steel.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you the question I ask all my guests. Can you remember the first time you saw Man of Steel?
Yes, I remember it very clearly. I remember going to Walmart because they were selling tickets to a special pre-screening event of the film a day or two before it was released to the general public. And I was happy to go over there. I got my ticket. I was so excited. I went to the theater that night, and I was with a huge group of people, and I absolutely walked out of the movie with nothing but smiles and excitement, and just very, very happy with how the film turned out overall.
It's funny you mentioned that because same story as yours. That Walmart screening, whatever it was. I don't even remember how I found out about it, but I remember going that day, getting the tickets, going the day before, and it was awesome. So, what are your overall thoughts on the film, just to start off?
Sure. I, for one, really, really enjoyed this new take, if you will, this new interpretation of the character known as Superman. I've been a fan of his since the Smallville days, the Lois and Clark, Terry Hatcher, Dean Cain days. So I became more and more of a fan of this character, especially during the second half or so of the Smallville era. So that was a huge influence on me. But as far as Man of Steel goes, I just loved it so much. I thought Henry Cavill did a tremendously great job of bringing new dimensions, a little bit of a edgier, maybe a little darker. I know that word gets tossed around numerous times throughout the DCU, but I really like the way they took the story and the characters, and Martha and Jonathan Kent, as well as Jor-El, Russell freaking Crowe. This guy is a beast of an actor. He's been that way for many years, but this performance of him as Jor-El was so just powerful. It was powerful. It was inspirational. Every time he spoke, whether it's be to his son Kal-El or talking to Lara in the opening moments of the film, you just hang on to every word he's saying. It just feels like it's a matter of great importance. Which, I mean, it was. Your planet's getting blown up, and all you have left is your son, who's going to hopefully save humanity one day, because that's the hope. Which is another word that gets tossed around a lot in the DCU. So I just loved it. The action was great. The acting, for the most part, was pretty very much well done, and just the visuals, just of how Zack Snyder took this character in a new direction to set the tone for the DC cinematic universe, I thought was really well done. And this is coming from somebody who wasn't a fan of Zack Snyder in the beginning. I thought he was a very bad choice in the beginning to be director of this film. I didn't think his style or the way he goes about making a film was best for this new cinematic universe to take place in, but I was so happy to be proven wrong. I love it when I'm proven wrong. Zack Snyder, I was a hater before. Now I'm a fan of his. I like him. He gave me Man of Steel. He gave me certain moments and scenes within Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, not the theatrical cut, but the Ultimate Edition, I thought was well done. So yeah, Man of Steel, loved it. Walked out. I probably gave it a 10 out of 10 back then. I probably still give it a 10 out of 10 as of now, and I saw it 5 times in the theaters. That's how much I love this movie.
Yeah, for me, I've been a huge DC fan since I was a kid. That was my gateway into superheroes. Superman has been my favorite since then. So I remember the build up to this movie was huge. The biggest thing for me was some people may not remember, but they had these two trailers running where one was Jor-El's voiceover and one was Jonathan Kent's voiceover. Both of those trailers are just amazing. I love both of them, the music of both of them, and you just got that sense of like, wow, we're really going to like dive into the duality, like the human and the Krypton side of Kal-El, Clark, whatever you want to call him. And yeah, and I went to the movie and I really did love it. I still do. It's one of my favorite comic book movies. And It's not my favorite Superman movie. That still is the original with Chris Reeve, but I've
Mm.
always said there are three Superman films that have done this character perfect justice in my eyes: Superman the movie,
Mhm.
Superman 2, and Man of Steel. And they're all kind of different depictions, but they all are good because they understand what's interesting about this character is the fact that he's the ultimate outsider. He looks like, it's kind of like Zod's speech where he looks like you, he sounds like you, but he is not one of you. And Clark trying to fit in, I thought they did, because you always think about this character like everyone's always like, oh, Superman's just the ultimate Boy Scout and all this. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but he's also a guy who, if he wanted to, he could just rule all of us. Like we see in the film during the Battle of Smallville, when the military tries to stop Zod and company, they, they're ineffective. So Superman can easily just be like, "This is mine now." So yeah, I still love this movie. But let's dive in. You already started talking about Russell Crowe, and I think that's a perfect place to start. Russell Crowe is so good in this movie. I mean, Maximus from Gladiator is still his best role, but this is one of my favorites of his. It's just, I mean, it's not Marlon Brando. I mean, he does say Krypton. Only Brando could say Krypton like that, but it's you get more of a sense of who Jor-El was and why, because it's a crazy thing to do to be like, I'm just going to put my kid onto a spaceship and fly him away because no one on my plane is believing me. And you understand kind of, because I like how they add this new element, which I believe, I forget which run in the Superman comics this idea started, of like Krypton being like no natural births and like you're all genetically modified, and the fact that Kal-El is the first um, non-genetically modified birth in years is a big deal to the character because he has a choice, and you get the sense. Um, so yeah, Russell Crowe is fantastic, and the entire opening sequence on Krypton I think is amazing. What do you think of it?
Yeah, the opening sequence is it's different. And to make a movie about any character, whether there's been previous incarnations of the character or not, you got to separate yourself from the pack, and you got to do something that no one's ever done before, or do something that's a different interpretation of that particular world or character or that scene, what have you. And I thought the way they did it was really well done. Like from the very beginning, even though it's maybe not everybody's favorite cup of tea, but the birthing scene with Jor-El and Lara in the very beginning, you're like, this is it. This is the birth of a potential savior here. And Jor-El is there right from the get. There's no doctors, there's no nurses. He doesn't need anyone to hold his hand. He can do it himself because he's just a strong character who cares for his family, who cares for his environment, and he wants to do what is best. And I just thought it was really, really well. Even the woman who was playing Lara, her name escapes me for the moment, but
Yeah,
yeah, Zara Patel, something. I don't know. I'll have to do some Googleizing, but on the fly here. But she was great too. I mean, it's a small role, but she just hammers it home in some way, shape, or form. But yeah,
yeah,
the opening sequence
that's
was
the sad part of the Superman mythos is Superman's mom is usually kind of just pushed to the side. She's kind of like,
in the background.
it's that sad part of comic books and movies and television in general, women, where it's like, it's kind of like a lot of movies how it's always like, you killed my father, and now it's probably, it's like, your mom's kind of just there to push. It sucks, it's not good, but the actress playing her is great, and I think she gets a great scene later on we'll talk about. But we also, in this opening, Michael Shannon as
Mm,
General Zod.
he owns it.
Because we get the classic Superman moment, which is Jor-El telling Krypton, "Hey, we're going to die. The planet is either too close to the sun. We've a number of different things in the comics and films and everything that destroy Krypton." And of course, no one believes him, because why would you believe your chief scientist? I've never understood that part of Superman lore ever. But then Zod comes in. They add this new element of there's a sort of coup trying to happen with Zod. Just, yeah, Michael Shannon. What do you think of him?
Yeah, Michael Shannon as this character. I wasn't too familiar with him as an actor in the beginning, but seeing him in Man of Steel was like, whoa, wait a minute. This He's menacing, he's evil, but he has his reasons. He gets why he's doing it. And even towards the end of the film, when he's picking up the dust of what's left, and he says, "All I wanted was to bring my people back, and you took that away from me." I mean, it's just you can see the anger just boiling inside of him, inch by inch, piece by piece, bit by bit, and he's just ready to.
Yeah.
It was great. Even though when he, spoilers if you haven't seen Man of Steel, when he hits Jarrell there in the back a little bit, I was like, dude. I mean, I know it's gonna happen, but it's like, come on. But
Yeah.
I get it. No, he was great. He owned it. He knows how to sell. He knows how to sell a role, and he sold it. I mean, I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. I
Mhm.
bought. There was a little bit of goodness in him, but then at the end of the day, it's like, no, he's bad. He's got to be put down.
Well, it's the same thing that me and Robert Parker talked about in the last episode when we did X-Men, talked about Magneto,
Oh
relatable
yes,
villains, where you
yes.
understand where they're coming from. You get
Mm-hmm.
why you're doing this, but they do these things that go, no, you're still a villain. You understand when he talks about how I was bred for one reason, to protect Krypton. You
Mm-hmm.
get that from the moment Zod was born, his entire growth and everything was, you're going to be protecting Krypton. You're going to be a soldier, a general. Your whole reason for living is to protect Krypton. But you do shady stuff that we go, okay, I get you want to protect Krypton, but you're going to try to kill everyone on Earth. You literally stab your friend in the back, which is a great, which I love because it's a great moment of being pushed to the limit. And sometimes when you get pushed to the limit, the choices you make, hero or villain, it's just a great moment. And it's also kind of, you could consider it. I've talked to some people who theorize that they're like, it's kind of a foreshadowing to the end with Zod, where it's Superman's in the same moment when he will, of course, talk about that scene. But I think people are looking a little bit too into that. I just think they wanted to have, Zod kill Jor-El because it will be more dramatic later on. But then of course, Superman, Kal-El gets put in this pod, gets sent to Earth, and then he's on an episode of The Deadliest Catch. Now, what do you think of this way of telling the story? Do you like this, or are you like some people who they would have preferred just a classic Superman? You see the Kents pick him up, and then he goes to adulthood.
Mm-hmm. I've heard this conversation's been brought up a lot of times, especially in recent years with the origin story. People are kind of sick and tired of it. They talk about certain characters. I thought they handled this brilliantly, brilliantly, because Superman's been around for so many decades, and so many different iterations of the character have appeared in both television and film. It's like, we get it. He's the last of a society. He gets shipped away to Earth. He's the savior of the planets and the galaxies and the universe, and blah blah blah. I thought it was handled brilliantly. As soon as the ship starts to go into the cornfield, and then boom, it flashes forward like 30 years. He's already a grown man. He's on the ship. He's grown a beard, which is awesome. It's like, this is different, and I love it. I thought it was handled really, really well. The deadliest catch scene, as you like to call it, that was fine. The oil rig, him saving the guys, the crew, I thought was
Such a
handled.
good sequence.
Yeah, that, and then the school bus. I mean, that whole nine. I thought it was handled so well. You get glimpses of what he is now. You get a few flashbacks as when he was a child and trying to deal with the oncoming growth of his powers, and his mom having to like help him and coach him. Diane Lane,
Oh my,
love you as
so good.
Martha Kent. You killed it. You're awesome. I want you to be in every single Superman movie from now into eternity. Both of them were great, and I wasn't too big on Kevin Costner playing Jonathan. I thought he was going to overshadow the movie because he's such a big Hollywood name. But
He didn't.
he was fine. He
I
didn't
love
bother
him in
me at
this
all.
movie. I love him as
He was
Jonathan. And I
good.
mean, like you said, I love that it's a different. The thing is that it's not a straightforward origin story, but
No.
you still, if you compare it to, say, the Chris Reeve one,
Mhm.
where you see him as a kid,
Right.
then you see him as a teenager, you get all those scenes in Man of Steel. It's just not back to back like in the Chris Reeve version. You see him when he's a little kid, that amazing scene when he's trying to understand his powers and he locks himself in the closet and his mom,
Yes.
the whole, you know, see the ocean, swim to it, and you're like, oh god. And then you get, I mean, that great scene with Seasons by Chris Cornell playing in the background. Love
Mm,
that. And then you get the school bus, and you get the fact that like he's had traumatizing moments, and sometimes that's what happens. You see a school bus, you get triggered, and then you get the first scene with Kevin Costner, who I
mhm.
love in this movie. The thing that so many people want to point out, they're like, he says drown the children. No, he doesn't. I'm stealing a little bit from Angry Joe from the Nostalgia Critic review, but he says maybe. What he is trying to say is he doesn't know. What he does know is that if Clark is allowed to run around and show these powers, someone's going to come and knock on his door and be like, your kid's coming with us to this lab and we're just going to pick and prod him and all this. He doesn't want that for his kid.
Right.
I mean, that's just, and Kevin Costner, you're right. Like I was a little bit too new of a film fan. Like I knew Kevin Costner, but I didn't know how
Oh,
huge he was. So I didn't think he was going to overshadow it. So I just saw the performance, and I really like Glenn Ford in the original. Is
oh yeah.
it's this thing where it's the two. It's kind of like comparing Henry Cavill to Chris Reeves, playing the same character but two different versions, and both are fantastic. Kevin Costner, I'm so glad that they brought him back for that quick scene in BVS because he is
Yeah.
so good as this character of Jonathan Kent. Like you get
Mhm.
the sternness of the dad, but you also get the I care for you and I know what you can become,
Hmm.
which is a big part of Jonathan Kent, which is a big part of the Kents. And Diane Lane is she's we don't even it's Diane freaking Lane. Come on. And then of course we're introduced to Amy Adams as Lois Lane. What do you think of Amy Adams in this film?
As much as I love this film, Amy Adams I thought was fine. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think she was the best Lois Lane I've ever seen. I think those honors, for me personally, I would give the honors to Terry Hatcher from the 1990s with Dean Cain TV
Mm.
series, as well as Erica Durance on Smallville. Love her. But Amy, this is like I said, this is new. It's different. Red hair, I get it. She's fine as an actress. I'm not the biggest fan of hers just yet. I haven't seen enough of her work to make a full assessment. She was, she's fine and she's going to grow. She's only going to grow. It's going to take time. I mean, BBS, I thought she was in the way a little too much in BBS, especially towards the end when we have the
Ooh.
Trinity being united for the first time ever in live action. And she's like, hey guys, here's the stick. Here's the spear. I'm like, no, no, no. But at the end of BVS, during the death scene, I got that.
I listen. Margot Kidder is my Lois Lane, but
That's
I
fine.
I think I think Amy Adams. I think she did a really good job for this version of Lois. I thought she did capture the character's essence. There are
Mhm.
Loises that I prefer over, her, but I think she works really well for this interpretation. But the big person I've of course been holding off on because it's a big discussion. Henry Cavill as Clark Kal-El Superman. What do you think, Ryan?
You know, I had no idea who this guy was. I never heard of him a day before in my life, but once, I'm not sure if it was the Entertainment Weekly or the USA Today that released that very first image of him in the suit, in the bank vault, with his arm held
Ooh,
back.
yep.
He's held up against the wall and he's like, he's got that stern look on his face, like, all right, I'm here. I'm
And
Superman.
everyone was complaining because he had no spit curl. I remember that.
Right, right. There were a few naysayers on the
I was like, what? He has
interwebs.
no spit curl? He looks awesome.
Who care? Yeah, I don't really care much for the curly part of the hair. But anyway, that's neither here or there. But yeah, I didn't know who this guy was, but when he came in and just played the role he was made to play, he it was great. It was great. It was better than anything I could have expected, and then some. Henry deserves a lot of credit. I think he's got a bright future in Hollywood. I think he's got a long career ahead of him. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked him up as the new James Bond because he did very well in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., underrated film, by the way. Um, I'm speechless. He's just so good. He's great. So Henry Cavill, I'm Team Cavill from 2013 to the end of days. Just every scene, he brought a new little layer to the character. I thought, specifically in this film, Man of Steel, just He nailed it. And the scene where he's being taught how to fly, the flight scene. Woohoo! Man, did he? I mean, look, nothing against Christopher Reeve and the memory of Christopher Reeve. He set the standard. He was the trendsetter. I get it. But when you're learning how to fly, and you got Hans Zimmer playing in the background, and you got Jor-El telling you how important you are to this world and what you're going to be able to do, the only way you can know your powers is by testing your limits. Give it to me. I love it.
I mean, Christopher Reeves is my favorite Superman, but Henry Cavill is number 2. And that's including the animated series one, which is amazing, Tom Welling from Smallville, which is fantastic, but Henry Cavill is so good at, he does a similar thing that I think, maybe not to the exact extent that Christopher was able to, but making the separation between Clark Kent and Superman, which they are two, Superman is the carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm the protector. I'm stamping my foot. This is my world. I'll stop whoever comes. And then there's Clark Kent, which is, I want to be normal, but I can't because I can literally throw a person through a wall. But my parents taught me you can't throw people through walls. I mean, I love the scene in the bar when he's, the guy's hitting on the fellow waitress, and he just goes up and he gets the beer spilt on his head, and you have that great moment where in his mind he's going, I can literally crush you right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to walk away and crucify your truck instead. And it's like, he's so
good.
And you get this thing of like, he would be okay if his powers were taken away from him. At a certain point in this film, he's like, when he's at the grave talking about how his dad died for him, which is a great sequence. And you're like, that guy, since he was a teenager, has been carrying this around. The fact that, like, my dad died because of me. Because I had these powers, he had to die. Like, it's so... And then, of course, by the end of the movie, when he's full Superman, and he's fighting Zod, he's so good. And you get that, like, when he smashes the wall and Jor-El is telling him, you could be the bridge between two worlds. You're like, God, he can't be, because he's and I love him. I can't wait to see him when they do Man of Steel 2, what they full on just Superman sequel.
Get on it, Hollywood.
I love Henry Cavill. I think he is awesome, and I'd be okay if he's the new James Bond. But so Ryan, I want to ask, do you have a favorite, and maybe you just had talked about it, but do you have a favorite scene from this film?
There's so many to choose from, but we briefly discussed it a few moments ago. I would have to say my favorite is towards the end. It's in the ship when him and Jor-El are first meeting each other out in the the Arctic or wherever it was. Yeah. And he shows him, the chamber opens up and you see the suit. You see the suit. And he says, you did all those lines. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's telling him, we're different from Earthlings, yes. But, as soon as he goes into his speech, the flight sequence, basically, when the chamber opens up, you see the suit, Jor-El's lecturing him or giving him lessons about what's going on with Krypton and what's going on now and what you can do with your abilities. And then he walks out, the ship opens up, and you see the Arctic, and you see this beautiful landscape, and he just walks along, gets down on his knees, puts his fist to the the ground of the ice patch there. And as soon as he goes up into the sky and you got Hans Zimmer playing, I lost it. I was like, this is one of my all-time favorite movies. This is my favorite comic book movie right now. This is my number 1. I know there's a lot of naysayers on this film, but for me, Man of Steel is numero uno, and it's going to stay that way until some film, it could be Marvel, it could be DC. I don't even care what property you are, if it's a superhero, comic book property, whatever. If that movie comes along and beats Man of Steel, then, and only then, will I give you credit. But for now, Man of Steel is my number 1. Cannot wait to watch it over and over again even more.
For me, I have 2. The flight scene is definitely, I just think that's a great filmmaking scene of, I like how he tries to do it and he falls, and then you hear Jor-El's voiceover, and he puts the fist down, and it's just And then the other one is when Jonathan reveals to Clark that he's an alien, that they found him. He shows the ship, and specifically the moment when Clark looks at Jonathan and goes, "Can't I just keep pretending I'm your son?" The way
Oh, yeah.
Costner goes, "You are my son." I'm like, oh god, because that is the Kents in a nutshell. They're like, yeah, we're gonna tell you you're an alien, but you're our kid. You're our kid. We raised you. And then you get later on, just along with that, when Diane Lane talks about how she used to lay by his crib and listen to him struggle breathing, you're just like, we lucked out that he fell in the back of their cornfield. Because imagine if he grew up with anyone else as his parents.
I'm glad they stuck with that in the marketing. This is one of the few films where what you see in the trailers, 99% of it is actually in the movie. It's not one of these trailers that gets cut together and then halfway through the second trailer comes out and all the footage is like completely re-edited or reshot, redone, and what have you in Hollywood. I'm very happy they stuck with this marketing because I thought the marketing was done perfectly and it landed when the film actually came out. The final cut of the film was what you got in the trailers and then some. So thank you, Warner Brothers.
Ryan, before we start to give wrap-up thoughts, I think there's a moment that, of course, people are going to want to hear our thoughts on. What are your feelings on the Zod next scene?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. A lot of people have brought that up in the last couple of years. Ever since the film came out, that's been a hot topic of debate with Man of Steel. I'm okay with it because, once again, it goes back to what we said in the beginning. This is a different interpretation of the character. And if Zod's not going to stop and you can't, I thought there's a little part of me that thought, well, you could have maybe lifted him off the ground and like fly him to a zone where there's no human population around, like an outskirts of the city. Then you really could have, taken him down. But he kept threatening to kill that family with his laser eyes. So you gotta take some action. And apparently it had to be immediate because otherwise that family would have been toast. So him snapping the neck, at the beginning I was shocked. I'll admit, as a Superman fan, I was shocked. I was like, whoa, this is, this is serious stuff. But look, you guys can debate it all you want. I'm fine with it. If Superman has to take down somebody because there's no other way to neutralize this person or to put him in a prison where he can't cause any more trouble, he or she for that matter, got to take him down. You got to take him down. Batman's killed in the comics. He's killed in the comics. If Batman can do it, why not Superman? He doesn't. He's classified as a Boy Scout, but let's be real here. There are comics out there that have Superman battling foes and having to kill them off because they're too strong or too much of a threat to the human population of Earth.
Yeah, for me, I think, it is a jarring when you first see the film, knowing Superman, it's a jarring moment. But I think when you watch the film again, you see with the character of Zod and with Clark, you get to this moment at the end where it's a choice. Zod's not going to stop until he either is able to remake Krypton or rule this world. So you had, and this is the thing with not just Superman, not just Batman, Spider-Man, all comic characters. They have this thing of, to steal from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. You have choices to make. Do you let the bad people keep doing bad things, or do you do something bad to stop it? And there's a million things you could say he could have done and I do laugh at the thing of they could have put the family in a more secluded spot because there is big, but then again, you have a giant man with lasers coming out of his eyes. You're probably not going to be thinking about that. You're going to be a little bit too focused. And that's Murphy's thinking. It's easy for us to sit back and watching it on our Blu-rays going, oh, well, he could have done this one. It's like, put yourself in his shoes. Like, literally, you're not going to be thinking after everything you've just been through. So yeah, I think it is an interesting topic to bring up. But I think it's a well-done scene. So, Ryan, what are your final wrap-up thoughts on Man of Steel?
I would just say, to those of you who may not be all that familiar with Superman, or for those of you who want to know where's the best place to start if I want to watch a DC movie, there are lots of ways you can start. I don't believe there's any right or wrong answer to this because everyone has a different take, everyone has a different taste, and everyone started watching the DC or being enveloped in the DC universe at a different age, whether it be through the comics, whether it be through the animated series, like I was in the '90s with Batman and Superman and the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Great show, by the way. I would say give Man of Steel a chance. I would say sit down and relax and enjoy the movie because this is one of the best comic book movies of all time, at least in my opinion. And I also believe it's one of the better superhero films that's been done because it's such a different, somewhat, and like I said, this word gets tossed around a lot, darker, edgier, if you will, take on an iconic character that has been with us for over 75 years, which is astounding to me that he's been around for over 75 years. Same thing goes with Batman. He's been around for over 75 years too, around that time. So I would say give the film a chance. I hope you enjoy it. If you like it, that's great. And if you don't like it, hey, that's fine too. We're all movie lovers. We all have
There's a lot of different interpretations of this character you make.
And we sometimes we like different takes, sometimes we don't. We like, certain iterations of the character more so than others, and that's fine. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But I would say congratulations to the entire cast and crew of Man of Steel. You gave us a wonderful, amazing, and inspirational film because of three people: Henry Cavill, Russell Crowe, and Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer, best score I've ever heard in my life from Hans Zimmer. I would definitely rank him as my right below John Williams. He is my second favorite composer for film scores, if you will. So yeah, just go out, enjoy the movie. If you like it, that's great. If not, that's fine too. But at the end of the day, Superman is a great character. He's a wonderful superhero, and I cannot wait to see what they do with his character as we go forward with the DC Cinematic Universe once they get their schedules together. They've announced like 50 million movies, and none of them are really greenlit. They're just saying, oh, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. No. Get on your horse. Give me my Man of Steel 2. Bring back Henry Cavill. If Zack Snyder wants to step away because of the family tragedy he's been going through, that's fine. I understand, Zack. I understand. But bring in Matthew Vaughn, bring in a fresh new face to direct it. I don't really care. Just keep some of the same stuff that you gave us in the first Man of Steel, and I'll be happy as a proverbial clam. So Man of Steel, thank you. 2 thumbs up.
For me, this is one of my favorite comic book movies. Like I said earlier, it's one of the best depictions of Superman out there. As a big fan. If you've never seen Man of Steel, I would say give it a chance. Don't. This is one of those films that has a lot of naysayers, and you know what? Not without cause. There are problems with this film, but you know what? There are problems with Civil War. There are problems with the Avengers. So go and watch these movies with a fresh set of eyes. If you saw Man of Steel and you didn't like it, hopefully me and Ryan talking about it makes you want to give it another chance, because it's definitely a film that I think is better upon a second viewing. So I want to thank Ryan for being here. Ryan, where can the good people find you?
Yes, sir. If you want to talk more about movies with me, whether it be the comic book genre, dramas, comedies, doesn't matter. I'm open to pretty much anything at this point. You can follow me online on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5 and on Facebook at Ryan Permison. My Facebook page is Ryan Permison, aspiring movie critic. Feel free to check me out there. And I am more than happy to talk about films with you all day, every day, because I love movies, and I hope you put down the book, pick up the remote, turn on some movies, and enjoy.
And as always, you guys can find me at Kearns_Matthew on Twitter, MattMoves611 on YouTube, and right here hosting the Movie Fandom show every other Wednesday on Take 3. So I want to thank again Ryan for being here and remind you all to keep loving movies. Take care.